Kusuzambo, and welcome to People's Voice. Tonight we'll be bringing you a discussion on Anti-Corruption Commission's report 2012. For this, I have Honorable Commissioner Kezang Jamso from Anti-Corruption Commission, Honorable Member of Parliament Zangle Dukpa from the opposition, and Mr. Ngirub Zangpo from Bhutan Observer. We in fact try to get a balanced representation for this program and approached National Council, but they thought they'll be preempting anything that happens here before they discuss or deliberate in their house. And we also did approach the ruling party or the government to send a representative for this discussion, but we could not have one because they have some other prior engagements. Nonetheless, we do have lots of young men and women working in Anti-Corruption Commission as a serious observer for this program, so that anything that is said or anything that they would want to supplement is most welcome, and we'd like to open the floor for discussion later. We couldn't offer much opportunity in Dzongkha session. So let me start with the Anti-Corruption Commission. Commissioner sir, now from this report, what we have gained is that long-term solution will be prevention and education.
Yes. And
that, as we discussed earlier in our Dzongkha session, fear factor is not a long-term or durable solution. But for now, it seems that corruption or any control over corruption is happening because people fear Anti-Corruption Commission, and in particular, people fear Dr. Nitin Zangma as the Honorable Chairperson of Anti-Corruption Commission. You don't do this, Dr. Nitin will be looking at you. You don't do that, Dr. Nitin will fix you. So it's individualized. What will happen when Dr. Nitin leaves Anti-Corruption Commission? Can we have the same kind of personality in Anti-Corruption Commission? These kind of factors, fear factor is not a solution at all. What are we going to do?
I think this question goes more to the public than to me, what we are going to do after Dr. Nitin leaves. But I think we must set our target, and we must set our procedure right, and that's what we have tried as the first commission, so that they fall into this procedure and do a good job. But the other way to look at it is, you improve the system, you improve the institutions, then anti-corruption is just going to be a watchdog who will do only big corruption cases through investigation. The system will take care of the rampant corruption that is in the country. But unless we improve the system, whoever comes, they will still have that
So
challenge.
who will improve the system? Who is supposed to improve the system? Do you see that political will in our society to improve the system?
I think political will is there from the highest level. If our kings have pronounced from the highest level, and the ruling government has done. In the last 5 years, it was zero tolerance to corruption, and the present government has made it very clear that they're going to fight corruption. So, who should do the prevention work? It's the executive mostly, because executive wields that power. Like the other, like the judiciary and the legislature, they don't have so much of scope in their daily engagement. So the executive must set the system right. That means the ministries, departments, and all the institutions that deal in money, that do the development work, they must have a system. It is said that corruption experts say that 99% of the corruption is stopped by a good system, and only 1% which escapes is dealt by the Anti-Corruption Commission. In our case, that is just the opposite. Everything comes to us because there's no system at the agency level.
Okay. Honorable Member of Parliament, what do you think? No system, that's why everything comes to Anti-Corruption Commission. And now you get a better perspective because you served as a member of cabinet for the last 5 years, and now you're on the other side of the fence. What do you think?
Firstly, I think those who are listening for the first time to this program, let me also inform them that I'm participating in this program in the capacity of a nominated member of the Ethics and Credential Committees and Good Governance Committee of the National Assembly. Now, coming back, system versus individual. I mean, that's what we are talking about. Now, yes, many people do express that what if Dr. Nathan is not there. What after the departure of Dr. Nathan? This is a sad thing that, again, the people, like we tend to associate the organization with the individual leader. And also, the organization, whether we like perceived or real, is revolving around an individual leader. In order to address this problem, not only in Bhutan, but across the world, in many countries, therefore we have the constitution in place. They have many structures, structural, the system is put in place. We have constitutional bodies, offices. We have check and balance, the offices to, to promote check and balances, to curb the corruption. And I think it is not true also, I beg to differ that there is no system. System is there. As I said, that system has to be dynamic. System cannot be static. You do something, it has to be dynamic, and it is becoming dynamic. System has to improve. I do agree. Therefore, we have so many mechanisms, institutions are put in place to create this kind of system where we will find less and less people will indulge in corrupt practices. So this is what I would like to stress. So, and then it comes to political will. Now, my experience, like for example, you cannot generalize that all people are corrupted. Yes, corruption we have to fight. This is the plight we need to fight together. Now, my experience, this is I have served the country for the last 44 years in various capacities. And I think our system is not that bad.
But have you ever felt of a systemic flaws that encouraged corruption in our society?
No system is perfect. No system is perfect. No person is perfect. So no system can be panacea to address all the problems facing the country, facing the society. And we need to improve. Yes, we agree. And there will be some flaws, deficiency in the system. And therefore, again, even if there's a system, the problem here is, as reflected in the report, our problem is, system is there. But, for example, supervision. Somebody has to supervise someone, but are we doing enough? Somebody has to provide leadership. Are we providing leadership enough? I think you see, both the ACC and RA reports in the last few years have been reflecting the absence of the vacuum, the supervision and monitoring vacuum. And this is, I think, if we could, improve the system whereby we make people, each of the individuals working in an organization responsible, I think things will. Yes. It is not that system is not there. And by the way, our system is fairly good because, as shown by Transparency International report, in Asia and the Pacific, we are sixth in the rank. We are Singapore, New Zealand, this is Australia, Hong Kong. These are well-developed countries. They took ages to improve. And we are doing it. And we can't have the results overnight. I think it takes time, but we must continuously make effort to improve the system.
Okay. This is one point that I'll come back to, because problem again is we do not want to take consolation from this ranking and then we remain complacent. That fear is there because many tend to believe that, okay, we are ranked quite high. Mr. Nguru Dzongkha, now, since you work in media, many countries like like Finland, New Zealand, all these countries are ranked quite high amongst the least corrupt countries. And they're talking to some of the people that I know. They said media plays a very important role in curbing or controlling corruption. Now, should this be the case then? This is the case. And keeping this in mind, are we playing that watchdog kind of role that we are supposed to play in curbing corruption in our society? Or should we, or is there a potential of people working in media becoming pet dog instead of watchdog?
I think this is a very relevant point, because the countries that are ranked high on the Transparency International's ranking happen to be mostly from Scandinavia. And Scandinavia is very well known internationally for very clean media practices. So I can see a link between corruption and media practices. And unfortunately, we live in a part of the world where media is not known to be corrupt-free, especially in South Asia. If you look at some of the neighbors, India, Bangladesh, media are not known to be corrupt-free. In fact, they're known to be corrupt. They're known to be leaning towards political parties. They're known to be friends of wealthy people and elites and so on.
And however, sensationalism is a serious problem.
Yes, sensationalism is a serious problem in South Asia, especially as far as I know. And however, in Bhutan, since we're new, we are, I think, not as bad as media in some of our neighbors.
But are we heading that way?
However, we are very susceptible to the problems that hit some of the media in our neighboring countries. We may have been already hit by some of the problems. I cannot say for sure whether media in Bhutan are corrupt as yet, because I do not have evidence to show that. And maybe if we have some suspicions, the government authorities concerned should look into this and investigate and find out as soon as possible, so that we remain clean. Because I, as a media practitioner for last so many years, I sincerely believe that it is as important for media to remain clean as anti-corruption to remain clean, and RCAC to remain clean, and the government to remain clean. Because media is so powerful. Media has the power and influence to shape our people's opinion, shape our people's attitude, and so on. Therefore, I think it's very, very important. But I still hope that media in Bhutan can grow up to be very responsible.
So, anyone would like to ask any questions or share your views? Okay, please introduce yourself. Would you mind to stand up, because you're not seen quite well through the camera, please.
I'm Chimiwangmu from the Anti-Corruption Commission. My question is to member of.
Okay, Member of Parliament.
Member of Parliament. As you have mentioned about the NACS in the Dzongkha session, my question is in line with that. NACS was adopted as the adopted by government in 2009 as an operative of zero tolerance to corruption, and it provides a platform for the government to initiate its anti-corruption measures systematically. But then, as per the report, the response from the agency has been very lukewarm. And why do you think there has been a lukewarm response? Because your honorable has been a member of previous government and now as the opposition member party. Thank you.
Thank you. I think before I answer Chimi's question, let me also give me a little bit 1 second to give my views on
1 second will be too less. You can take
media.
More than
Media, the role of the media, responsible
okay,
media.
Okay,
I think, as I said again, we suspect that some papers, there are corruption in the media, but we don't want to come out. Because maybe my relatives are working for that, under that particular blah, 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 who finances the particular media or paper. So this is the problem, because again, the losing of the loss of the job, and this is in a small society. You cannot be faceless. I think this is serious that we need to address that. If we need to really work together, the media has to be responsible. Now coming to the NAC, yes, as I mentioned, it takes time. When we talk about the reform, restructure, bringing in some new system, you are used to a kind of a culture or the system, and to bring about changes in that particular cultural setting, It takes time, but we should not give up. I don't think so, but if your report again says that about 32 ministries and agencies have been implementing in one way or the other the NAC, National Anti-Corruption Strategies. So it takes time, you know, like a lot of effort. You say once and you can't expect to be done. We need to do follow-up. You know, in Bhutan, one thing I must admit, in the last 44 years, I'm party to that kind of system also. You need to follow up, constantly follow up. Even if you write an application, you have to follow up. You know, this has become kind of a culture. We need to address this culture of organization also. It's an organizational culture. So I think that, look, I don't think so. People are now beginning to appreciate, beginning to understand what is the benefit of NAC. Like even high-risk corruption management, that's also not being implemented. People do appreciate. So it takes time. Sometimes you go and ask what is NAC in one of our officially in an organization. He or she may not know. So we need to educate. And yes, I do agree. The leadership again comes over here. Once you have a political will, which we have, and then leadership, and then I think it just down the line things will happen. But we need to continuously make effort.
Okay, Commissioner, sir.
No, I just wanted to make a comment that the cleanest countries in the world, they don't have an anti-corruption agency. That is something we must, you know, really examine and understand, because their system is so good. And we are a small nation, a small country with 700,000. Why can't we improve our system? Why is there that lethargy from the government? That is what we ask. I think for next to take shape, it shouldn't take us, you know, 5-6 years. You know, these sort of things we are asking, system improvement, because that's the most sustainable way of fighting corruption. So this is what I wanted to put.
Okay, we'll come back to you, sir. Before that, we'll take our first call. Hello. Our first caller online. Hello.
Hello.
Please introduce yourself.
Hello.
Kuzu Sampo la me.
Kuzu Sampo la ngana tembu thomnale judo.
Laso.
Ani ngaki hinkinale mijula ngana Dzongkha juge mula.
Tup.
Ani la tatu ani corruption gidinle sunde bala ngaki na tu jangthun nale zidala.
Laso.
Ani bota lu ngaki diwa nguma tila ngata dashu sangle lu tinivela. Ani tatu dashu gi sunde bala. Ani ngati government ki system na lu dinamisa perfect be se sunde ba mola. Tangagi tichugi theri heptal ngagi kongi system na leve ate ngati gi na tender na lu chama to dalu te ani na lu ikcha chi mathambe wala te ani ikcha mathamba le tendi te ngati ge ikcha di shungi manamar tendi ngati ge pha mafi wala mafi wa tele te kongi di ngati ikcha thambe matuwe se lape ngati ge tender de reject pe tande wala te tamta chi halu te ngaki na amne tin zamlo ya shuila te ikcha di mapa di ya kongi ani ACC gi me wala te ani procurement rule na di ikcha di su gachira tu de beru jungira ngachelu nango se do wala te namta chi halu kongi manam me ten ngati ge matu
nalu chi shuge achi nagi senshla nalu chi shuge nagi tenchung ngomati ko thasu ni mela ta phagi chenten chugi chenten ni membashina pare tenchung ngomati nagi thugale bawachi darigi nagi tapmadu na shumi dilu ngele di kachinale thunim zum chi simela
tato de mapa de ngele se de ta kachimo sochin labo de jungi chatin de tibe mabiole ten de dile de ngele zum chi thome wala ani te timlu di jungi samdi janu de lalin thamni di ngati jungi lalin thap ko ngati misige lalin thap ko wala te golera jungi jesum dalu de misilu kha ke be te chami tame wala ta ngati gi dilu ikcha di ni misambe ta jul khatulere sewa yasun jus lape tenga gatilora chaila chadi beru gagiya ngargi le ngagi lo dilu cha matuwa beshimle tenga gi danim chibe ta shunda ngati misibo dalu shura pachi misilu problem chi yoti beru shungi nawazra simite be noti tenga anim chibe jutumbe tenga chani be chaila ti
was the past government that powerful? Because she mentioned that government wouldn't listen to them, and ultimately the blame is put on individuals by the government. Now laws are made to be followed, yet there are instances where laws are violated or rules are not followed, is what she meant.
As far as I'm concerned, thank you for the question. I don't think the government was elected by the people to serve the people of this country. And we tried our best to serve. I'm not claiming that we were perfect. We would not have made any mistakes. Yes, in the process, mistakes would have been made, but not intentionally. But as far as I'm concerned, say in the Ministry of Health, for example, we had to strictly we have to make sure that the procurement rules are complied with. And then, yes, there are problems. Sometimes, like participants, participants who like to participate in the procurement, tender or bids. Like the procurement manual, sometimes it's a very voluminous and it's very difficult for our people or for the people to really go through such voluminous conditions of contract or the bid documents. So I think that also we need to simplify, which we tried, so that everybody could understand, comprehend the procurement rules or the whatever it may be, terms and reference. But there are problems on the both way. Yes. There may be because our people who are involved in awarding the work in the procurement system will make sure that all participants comply with the terms and conditions. And sometimes it's not, the people would not bring together. So that could have happened. But I don't think there would have been any violation, violation of rules. In that case, then they should. If this was done, then it is their duty to report to the immediate supervisor or to the head of the ministry or the head of the bureaucracy. And it must be brought together. They brought to the notice of the people so that timely action can be taken. I think that's what I would like to share.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Anybody who would have anything to share? Okay, since there's no one here, let me put this question to Commissioner Sir. Now, while going through the report, we found out that one of the recommendations made by the National Assembly members then was that you were supposed, or you were rather requested or asked to present the number of cases that you are dealing with and the ones that you have not solved, or rather you have listed not to be solved because of some reasons, and the reasons should be mentioned. And this is how things could be made transparent within the organization itself. Are you willing to do that?
Yes, why not? This because we cannot preach transparency to others and we can be opaque. No, the rules apply to all. So we have to be open and we have to be transparent on the way we do the cases.
But one important thing that we need to know by now is, I've had several programs on anti-corruption measures, and one of the reasons, or one of the key areas that experts have pointed out so far is mainly the problem of receiving all kinds of complaints which should not be taken up or should not be lodged to Anti-Corruption Commission. And while trying to sieve through all these corruption cases, some are to be left. And then somehow people at individual level, knowing or unknowingly, come up to Anti-Corruption Commission with some vague instances of corruption, and they expect Anti-Corruption Commission to solve it. Yeah. But upon your justification, you don't solve it because that particular issue does not require any attention from your side. But the issue at larger hand is that people are sometimes, as whistleblowers, might feel demotivated because Anti-Corruption Commission is not acting upon the requests that they put. No, how do you deal with it?
It involves the whole issue of how we deal with the whole spectrum of complaints. So, and this sort of thing is web-based. We have a software which manages this complaint management, and it passes through a screening process. And the first screening process is, the first decision of the screening process is investigation. next is discrete inquiry, third is share with agency, and fourth is drop. So we have 4 actions on every complaint, and if it is investigation, then we line up. If it is discrete inquiry, also we line up. But what is share? Share is that has no corruption element, but it's a system administrative lapses, and we share with the agency. And drop one, it doesn't have any element of corruption as well as administrative lapses. So this is how we deal, and it is transparent, and people can, we give them the feedback to the complainants.
Yes, sir. Next caller online. Hello, Ola.
Hello, Ola.
Sir, please go ahead. Of course, with your introduction, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
This is Pen Gelson from Wongdila. Well, my question is, first of all, when Dawa, you opened up the floor, your intro question, talking about the fearing Dasho Amnetin rather than more ACC itself. So, because my opinion is, I think as long as anyone, irrespective of who it is, whether it is Dasho Amnetin or any person as a chairperson of the ACC, I think people should be fearing ACC, not Dasho Amnetin, for that reason. And I don't know what really brings to the conclusion that the fearful one is Dasho Amnetin. And number 2 is, now I would like to ask the opinion of Anti-Corruption Commission, particularly in dealing with the corruption in the legal institute, should there be any reported, if any. Why? Because ACC has to fight back that very same case with the legal system itself, and then the legal system would have the support of the judiciary, while anti-corruption would not have that much of legal support. So in such a case, how would Anti-Corruption Commission go about?
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Pemgese, thank you so much for your question. But a small disclaimer with reference to Dasho Nitin. I think the reference was made not to see individuals above institution or vice versa. But the fact of the matter is a comparison, or rather a reference was made in the case of fear factor, spreading fear factor. We don't want people to see Dasho Nitin, or for that matter ACC, as an institution that creates fear factor rather than individuals trying to change their own mindset. That was the reference made. Anyways, sir, legal issue.
I didn't really understand this question. Can you?
Yes, what Mr. Pemgese mentioned was, with lack of legal support that Anti-Corruption Commission is getting, how would you function as the case? I'm sure he must be referring to the lack of coordination between Office of Attorney General and that of Anti-Corruption Commission.
By and large, I think we have a very good coordination. That's what I believe. And there could be stray cases, and that we try to solve it mutually. And I do not know whether the cooperation he mentioned was from the judiciary. Judiciary. I think judiciary is an independent organization, and they have to pass judgments or verdicts based on the evidence and the rule of procedure. So I cannot claim and say that this case we need to win, and we didn't win, and because the judiciary is not cooperating with us.
People should know that whatever ACC puts up to the courts or judiciary will not be fully endorsed, not necessarily be endorsed, right, sir?
Yes, and here I would like to put one fact in front of him. In the region, the conviction rate is below 70%, and our conviction rate is above 90%. So this illustrates that the perception is not really the truth.
Okay, Mr. Dzongkha, transparency and accountability, these are 2 key measures or 2 key areas that we need to focus so that corruption is controlled in many societies. Now, Commissioner earlier mentioned that all these least corrupt countries do not even have anti-corruption commissions or institutions as anti-corruption commissions or anti-corruption institutions. Here we have it, but there they have strong and vibrant media that promote transparency, that promote balanced reporting, truthful reporting. That's why corruption is put a strong check on. In our case, has it been easy for media fraternity to get information and make things transparent while you cover corruption-related cases?
I think whether society is corrupt or corrupt-free may depend on the kind of media we have up to some extent, but may not depend totally on the kind of media we have. Yeah. Maybe in Scandinavian countries like Norway, Sweden, Denmark, they may have, I don't know, they may be having a clean system itself in the first place. And the clean system also means a clean media. The clean system means the whole society is clean. Therefore, I think that has to do more with system itself than the kind of media. But having said that, I believe that media can also, up to some extent, help the society become clean. And here in Bhutan, although we are a very, very small country, it is unfortunate that we have a host of corruption cases to tackle. And when we have host of corruption cases, even media reports, media stories tend to become a little sensational because these are corruption cases. We are not writing about happy people in a society, happy communities. We are writing about disgruntled people and system going astray and so on. So I think that is why some of the media reports are sensational. I think to add a little bit on Commissioner's points mentioned earlier, I think the Anti-Corruption Commission report 2012 is filled with references to our system being not very clean, not very effective, our system being not corrupt-free. And I would just like to read out some of the lines from the reports. These lines struck me really this morning. One line says, fighting corruption is becoming challenging and lonely for the ACC. And another line says, ACC cannot be subject to political and ministerial dictates. We have a lot of lines like this in the report, which indicates, I think, that ACC is, in a way, under a lot of pressures. The report is talking about ministerial dictates and political dictates. And it's talking about the fighting corruption becoming lonely.
Yes, sir.
So I think we need to take this message home.
Commissioner, sir, would you like to elaborate on this?
I think it's, I think what we mean by this is we have always been saying that fighting corruption is a collective responsibility. And I think there is some sort of a indication that the collective responsibility is not coming. We have always said we spearhead, there must be support. We have been spearheading for the last 7 years, but the people of Bhutan must judge whether there is support or not from the institutions.
Must be under lots of pressure.
So pressure comes because we are. It has already mentioned that fighting corruption has become a lonely battle. So it all indicates that support from the institutions, support from the system, support from the people who matter is not as we expect.
Yes, yes, sir. Another caller online. Sir, we have a caller waiting, so after that I'll come back to you, sir. Hello, Ola.
Hello, Ola.
Sir, your introduction, please.
Yes, La. I'm Dorji calling from Hala.
Yes, sir.
My question is that, La, what is the role and function of ACC, La? Is it like a police department where you wait for crime, La? Or you wait for somebody to report, La, what is happening, whether there is a corruption going on or not, La? Or sometimes I have not seen any cases, or I have not heard about also ACC corruption coming in front, checking the assets of the bureaucrats, La, probably. Because I've seen many examples, La. Some bureaucrats having big apple orchards, some bureaucrats buying some luxurious car, La, which when I calculate the cost about regarding their salary and their income, total income, it's impossible, La. Even taking the 100% loan also, it's impossible, La. But yes, I see these many things, such things happening in Bhutan, La, particularly in, I just don't want to name the departments, La, which yes, everybody, each and every Bhutanese knows, La, yes, and who has some assets that are more, which has more values than their annual income or monthly income, La.
Yes, sir.
So what does in such case SCC does, La?
Levidoji, thank you so much for your question. I think by now we would assume that people know the role that Anti-Corruption Commission plays. But coming back to asset declaration, should be used as an effective tool to check corruption.
Yes, it's a very effective tool to check corruption, and that's why we have started the asset declaration. And there is also something called lifestyle watch. Lifestyle watch means what he has exactly described as. You know, if someone is buying or if someone is living beyond his means, we need to look into it. But he seems to have more information on that, and I think he should share such information with us, and we will ascertain it.
Thereby it becomes collective responsibility.
Collective responsibility, because we may not know exactly what he has known. So this sort of reporting, Constitution has given that mandate to the people of Bhutan that you should respect the rule of law and fight against corruption. It's Article 9, Article 8, Section 9. So people must come forward and report rather than making a point only and not reporting to the agencies.
So any instances of lifestyle observations done so far?
We watch people, and we also check periodically their income statement. And as of now, because we have begun, another thing we have to really, I must point out is, asset declaration rule has come from 2012. So it applies after 2012. And what they have from before, unless we can prove beyond reasonable doubt, it will be witch hunting, and we don't want to do. But what is legally possible, we would do.
Okay.
I think what I would like to comment before this political and ministerial dictates, and that's what we should be mindful of. We should not allow it to happen. But again, like lonely fighting, the ACC should not be pessimistic also. You know, like we call something called multi-track system. And like when you go into investigation, you shouldn't go with one-track mind, one track. You should also understand the difficulties and challenges. You are sharing with your challenges, but then the agency have their own sets of challenges and the problems to fulfill certain targets in time. And this, this has to be, we all have to be mindful. Try to understand the target that you are investigating also there. The emotions. When you may be if you are emotionally charged with, the other side is also emotionally charged with. That have to be, therefore I am saying relationship, working together to avoid. Now, the asset declaration, this is what I was very happy. Sometimes the report said now they are going to look into, analyze, and then use this asset declaration as a tool to kind of check and, how do I put it, content on the likelihood of the corruption in a particular thing.
Okay, sir.
My name is Rinchen and I'm from ACC. My question is to Mr. Nidup. As per the report, and as always, ACC has been emphasizing on prevention and public education, which is a long-term measure. But on contrary, it has been found that media is only interested in investigative and hot stories. So as a media practitioner, what do you say, and what do you think you need to take what do you think you need to take some responsibilities to address this?
Always after hot stories and not going for educational.
That's true. That's also reflected in the Anti-Corruption Commission report. I've read this, that media is interested more in investigation than in education and awareness programs. I think that has got to do with the nature of the media in the first place. Bhutanese media have become very competitive, and investigative stories, sensational stories are sexier than awareness and education stories first. And second, I think until now we haven't had a lot of interaction with ACC, because ACC hasn't had a media public communication strategy and media officer. Therefore, we haven't had a lot of interaction. from now that this report says that ACC has drafted a public communication strategy and has appointed a media officer, we would like to interact with ACC more and get more information. And as media, as responsible media, we would like to focus as much on education and awareness as on investigation. That is our responsibility. And we have, if media professionals are good enough, I think we can make education and awareness stories as sexy as investigation stories. It's not necessarily that investigation stories are better and more sensational.
Okay, Commissioner sir, now talking about the potential risk areas for corruption, even within your own organization, going through the list, let me read out some of them. Nomination of weak commissioners and preferential treatment to cases by the commission, misuse of resources, abuse of authority by investigators, trading privileged information, bribery, manipulation of complaints, collusion, and embezzlement. These are some of the potential risk areas identified within your own organization. Are you putting measures in place for all these risk areas?
Yes, because if Anti-Corruption Commission is corrupt, I think there's no remedy. And the Commission has made very strong efforts in trying to set up systems, trying to plug the loopholes that may be that are vulnerable to corruption. That's why we do corruption risk assessment every year. And then there is a system of code of conduct. We must practice our code of conduct, and all our decisions are all minuted.
Yes.
And we have a change management program to bring everyone on board. And investigation is not done by investigating officers alone. There's an oversight, constant oversight. There's a weekly briefing so that we are kept on track, and these are some of the measures we have to check corrupt practices entering into the agency. Because if ACC is corrupt, I think we lose faith. We lose faith, and we can't just preach and not practice. So that's why we are very aware of it, and we have systems in place so that we at least are not not become a victim of our own work.
So from day one itself, Anti-Corruption Commission has been preaching that fighting corruption is a collective responsibility. And even today, by 2012, your report says you're fighting a lone battle. Now, if this be the case, then the way forward does not seem to be so progressive. What do you think? Because as long as you are hit, let's say, if you are not hit by any corruption charges, you would believe that it's a collective responsibility. But the moment, even as a private individual, if you are hit by any corruption charges, you tend to shy away from this whole idea of collectivism. Way forward, is it progressive?
So far, our experience is there's very strong lip service to practice collective responsibility. But the moment you are under investigation, you are, ACC is detested, because you feel that as long as it is others, we support you, but if you catch us, we will not support you. And this is a reality we have faced. And way forward, I hope people change their mentality, and they must also accept if they have done something wrong, they should be accountable for it. And we, from our side, one constant effort has been, don't put someone who is not corrupt in jail. Okay. You must really exercise this caution.
Honourable Member of Parliament, I think one serious problem we have is in many instances, we are good at giving all these lip services, as Commissioner mentioned. Can we change that?
We can change. I say, I'm always a positive, which means by nature positive. We have to have a kind of a positive approach, positive attitude. You see, the moment you have that it's a lip service law, and it's a lonely fighting, I think I would like to appeal to ACC that we should develop a kind of positive attitude that things will happen. We can fight this problem. That kind of thing. I think, yes, there could be. This is how it is perceived. But as far as some agencies are concerned, they might think they are truly cooperating, they are truly doing something. But it may not happen. So therefore, that communication gap has to be bridged. Communication gap has to be, a barrier has to be removed. The walls of that perception have to be removed, and which they are working, which I am happy about it. That is the education, working together, signing up MOU, agreement with sometimes, like I do agree that in a society like ours, Buddhist society, JNS society, I think the policing is not required actually. This kind of investigation is not required, but socio-economic development that has taken place in this country has its own sets of values. And now we have the media, we have the, what I call that now, TV, television, commercial advertisement, and look at the lifestyle that is changing. And if you don't have one, you want to have, you want to wear the clothes that other is wearing, and therefore you have no other source. And that's what we have to address holistically. That's why I'm saying multi-track, holistically. We cannot address only just the corruption problem or from one angle, one track. So we have to look at from holistically and say, now employment issue has to be solved, problem, in order, and there are so many things that, like in Singapore, and I studied there, why they are doing very well. It's not that Singaporeans are not corrupted, but they cannot because the system is so good, and plus their welfare is taken care of.
Yes.
The CEOs are paid well. So look at holistically. Therefore, we have to have the dynamic, strong economic development so that we can look after our civil servants and the people who are involved in procurement so that they do not indulge in corruptive practices. They are under pressure. And then the media comes in again, the sensationalization and many other things, even a politicization. I'm sorry to use, therefore the prostitution also. You know what I mean? When you do something for somebody who is paying, you are prostitute.
Yes, sir. Yes. Thank you. Nirup, last word. Way forward. How do you look at
the
fighting
way
corruption?
forward? First, let me begin with less positive point from the ACC's report 2012, which is a survey or research by ACC in some of our schools found that 54 point something % of our youth think that they can be corrupt. They are willing to be corrupt if they become successful. That the report notes it's very sad. The positive note is that the report says that our people think the corruption in Bhutan has gone down in the last 5 years. That is perception. And experts I've heard say that perceptions are very important when fighting corruption. So I think that is a positive note. Our people think that corruption has actually gone down. Whether it's gone down or not, we don't know. But that is a perception which is very important, I think.
Thank you, Nirup. Final word, Commissioner sir. What Nirup just mentioned, youth, targeting the youth, value education in schools. Did ACC have any talks with the Minister of Education or any relevant stakeholders for education?
Yeah, the survey that Nirup mentioned we have done in 2012, and the survey finding is not very encouraging. Our youth, they are ready to engage in corrupt practice if there's a benefit or if he is going to be successful with it. So, and we have shared this report with the Ministry of Education, and Ministry of Education has been saying that they have value education programs in the schools, but the perception study survey says otherwise. So we need to work with them and hear the expertise. How do you move about? Because classrooms are packed. Yes. There's no way you can enter into with additional syllabus or additional curriculum. Okay. So how do you integrate value education in the school is a big challenge, and the dialogue is on.
Sir. Thank you so much. Running short of time, but so sorry, I'll have to cut short the discussion. Love to move forward, but then it's such a lengthy discussion that requires a lot of time. Anyways, the key message here is that before I point out any messages out here, one sincere apology that we would like to render is that we have collected some opinions from the streets on corruption, how rampant is corruption in Bhutan, and also the forms of corruption. Many pointed out that favoritism, nepotism, and to a large extent even sexual favors in institutions and offices are prevalent as part of corruption. These are some areas that we could have highlighted, but in the interest of time we couldn't do it. Sincere apologies for those who shared your opinions, must have waited so long to see yourself on the television. So sorry for that. But fighting corruption, again, is a collective responsibility. Let's work towards it. Thank you so much for watching People's Light Voice. It's time to say good night and Tashidalala. Thank you.